but in order to make up for some of the work that was missed last week, we've added that to the schedule, and we believe that by next week, we will get back on schedule. So in other words, what's planned is the conversation with the EDA and development to be next Tuesday. So between today and next Tuesday, we should be right back on schedule. So it's a mixture of items. We'll have Sabrina give you the second half of the mid-year update, which is just really focusing on compensation. Then there are two issues that will come before council at the last voting meeting of this month. So we wanted to get that out in front of you today. That's a bond agreement as well as a regional wastewater consolidation item. And then we have one closed session item. It's a legal matter. But before that, Mayor, there are two things that have to occur. Last week, there was an emergency declaration, and I believe Breck has queued up an ordinance that's related to that. And also after that, Mayor, we do have Brian, who is queued up to give us a General Assembly update. So with that said, I turn it back.
Why don't we pass on the resolution, which is pretty standard, which is we ratified a declaration of a state of local emergency made by the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Norfolk. We have to do that. He declares it, and then we have to come back and ratify it. It's very standard. So you want to call it?
Okay, this is marked R1. It's a resolution ratifying a declaration of a state of local emergency made by the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Norfolk, Virginia, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 44-146.21 due to the hazards and damages of winter snowstorm Leon. Adopt the resolution. Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Protogiru?
Aye.
Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel,
Aye.
Dr. Whibley?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wynn?
Aye.
Mr. Frame?
Aye. We also have one other housekeeping matter, which you have in front of you, an ordinance authorizing litigation and expenditure of funds by the school board of the City of Norfolk to challenge in court the constitutionality of the OEI legislation. There is a provision in our charter, or the state code, that says when a local government agency actually brings litigation against a state agency, the local government has to authorize it with an ordinance. And so we've already initiated the litigations, but we need to pass this ordinance.
And is this enough to say that we are supporting them in their initiatives as an ordinance, saying that we also oppose OEI by doing this?
Yeah,
As a
it
council,
says, whereas the city council and school boards oppose the said
Sure,
act.
just want to make sure that because I had asked for that, so I want to make sure
It's
that
in there, it's in the whereas, second whereas clause. Right.
Is there a budgetary issue here?
No, there's not. There'll be some minor costs like court reporters if that's required, but we've got it in-house.
And let's vote on this, and go ahead. I'll let you go ahead.
An ordinance authorizing litigation and expenditure of funds by the school board of the City of Norfolk to challenge in court the constitutionality of the Opportunity Educational Institution legislation, 2013 Acts of General Assembly, Chapter 805. Dispense with the charter requirement for reading the ordinance and adopt. Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Protogiru?
Aye.
Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Smigiel,
Aye.
Dr. Whibley?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wynn?
Aye.
Mr. Frame?
I've already met with the Attorney General about this matter, and I don't want to speak for him, but he voted against this OEI legislation all three times when he was in the state Senate. I don't believe he intends to spend any more money from the state for outside counsel when he doesn't attend releases. Again, I'm not speaking for him, this isn't an announcement, but I don't believe the Commonwealth is going to defend this matter. I mean, he's the second Attorney General in a row who's now taken this position from different positions on the political spectrum. I know the new Secretary of Education is getting up to date on all of this. I've spoken with her about it, and I'm not speaking for her, but I think we're in pretty good shape as far as this goes. Okay, thank you. All right, now, why don't we go to Brian, and after Brian's finished, we'll go around the table with the council concerns since Brian's teed up.
Brian Penny.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian, you're live. I'm going to turn it over to the mayor, okay?
No, we
Okay,
can't,
thank you, Manager.
we can't see you on the screen. Lucky us. Okay, all right, Brian, you're on your own. We don't see you, but we can hear you fine.
Fantastic. Sorry about the technical difficulties, Council. Going to be probably 10 minutes total, and then we'll be able to attempt to field any specific questions council members might have. However, at any time, feel free to chime in, and I will try to keep my comments brief. I want to start off by saying we've had a very good session as it relates to Norfolk's specific legislative requests and priorities. As of right now, our priority legislative request, which is the request of the General Assembly to establish a joint subcommittee to formulate statewide recommendations for addressing current flooding, has just now passed House rules. And as you know from the previous report, SJ3 had already passed the Senate. So with both bills essentially identical, and anticipating with a 15-0 unanimous vote from the powerful House Rules Committee, the assumption is we are in good shape for our priority legislative request to be passed by the General Assembly this session, which, taking into account the history and where we started from not more than 3 years ago to now, really is, I believe, to be quite a significant achievement. It's been very interesting to see hearts and minds of a lot of folks that have been involved with Norfolk all along and trying to bring additional awareness to this particular issue. I especially want to take a minute to compliment Jim Riddick over at EOC for his involvement with the Secure Commonwealth panel that essentially was the setup leading into our being able to advance what everyone here says is quite an ambitious request given the current legislative times we find ourselves in. So I am cautiously optimistic, Council, but with the update that just came in that the House rules had officially passed our legislative request, looks really good that this is going to move forward.
Brian, don't we also want to thank the Speaker of the House, Bill Howe, for letting this move forward?
Oh, absolutely, Mayor, and there's going to be a lot of things to go around. The only substantial thing that has changed from the original legislation that was introduced is Delegate Stolle did accept what we believe to be a friendly amendment, changing some of the composition of the committee structure, but it did not at all, in our view, have any impact on what the goal and objectives are over the 2-year period. Moving forward, our second legislative request for the city of Norfolk this year was to push forward a city charter bill request that combined 2 charter requests in one bill. The council had requested that we proceed with the ability to try to decide, for council to decide for itself the frequency of meetings. You see, for some historical reason that I haven't been able to put my exact finger on, you're one of the few councils across the Commonwealth actually required to meet 36 times at a minimum per year. And we've had no problem whatsoever with this piece of the legislative bill pushing forward. And also there was a second component of this legislative request had to do with the ability to hire and create a new deputy chief of police position. As I said, both SB 198 as well as HB 399 have passed their respective chambers. They're essentially identical, and we're just waiting for the final decision for the General Assembly to take the position to roll them both up and send to the governor for his approval. Last, our third legislative request. This was a request to increase the Norfolk School Board member term from 2 years to 3 years. We had 2 bills, SB 90, which is being carried by Senator Alexander, and it unanimously passed the Senate back on 114. Delegate Howell is carrying the House companion bill. It unanimously passed back in January 23. So, I'm sorry, it passed its committee January 23 and has since passed its chamber. So both of these bills are in good order, and it looks like they are poised to be passed by the General Assembly. Moving on to larger legislative areas of concern or interest to the administration, want to first talk about transportation bills of significance up there. There's been a whole host of them introduced. The three big ones that I wanted to point out to council is Delegate Chris Stolle, our delegate, has introduced a bill to essentially set priorities for the highway construction spending across Virginia. So in this bill, HB2, it's telling regional transportation districts to take the state allocations and then prioritize those projects based on factors such as congestion, relief, economic development, public safety, et cetera. Now, the HRTPO has already done a lot of this work as a regional body, and as a matter of fact, Delegate Stolle referenced the work at the HRTPO as a place to start with application that could be applied statewide. So, cutting to the chase, what's significant about HB2 for us, it essentially, if it passes as drafted, will give local governments like Norfolk more of a say on the ranking and the weighting of the criteria by the district. And it will also allow the different regions that have different needs to be able to place whatever their elected leadership feels are the most important factors in determining how to proceed on transportation projects. The next big bill up here that we've been watching closely was a bill that was in the HRTPO legislative package as well as the city of Norfolk, and it was carried by Senator Wagner, essentially asking the Commonwealth to study the transportation equity of funding, how the Commonwealth goes about distributing the funds, et cetera. Unfortunately, SJ 72 was left in committee. The biggest problem up here that we're finding in most studies, save Norfolk's request for a study of recurrent flooding, is that JLARC is just at a capacity issue. There's too many studies that are plugged in, and essentially all of their available time has been, according to testimony from JLARC director, has already been spoken for other study initiatives. However, that said, we have advanced that SJ 72 continues to be a priority, this transportation equity study, especially with the import of the new regional monies. So to the extent that we could advance it, we do have this study request in position to be considered if there is capacity that becomes available with JLARC. The last transportation bill, and there's so many, council, but I tried to pick out the big three. This bill was covered in the local press. It's SB 513 Wagner and HB 1253 Jones, and this is the creation of the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission. This bill is important to Norfolk and Hampton Roads specifically because it would create the framework for the region to accomplish a number of things that it currently can't accomplish just as an HRTPO. For instance, this commission could become a qualified PPTA entity. It could become a bond issuer. It could be a tolling authority. It really is trying to mirror a lot of the legislative authorities that already exist in Northern Virginia, but again, has the goal to put some of the decision-making back into the hands of the regional leaders to determine how we spend precious and few transportation dollars. Anything on that, Mayor, before I move to the next topic?
Just, has the number of General Assembly members on the commission been established? It was 3 before. Is it still 3?
It has been established in the revised legislation. There still is the issue that you and I had spoke about before, dealing with senator appointments versus delegate appointments that we're trying to work through. But predominantly, Mayor, most of the control, if you will, for lack of a better word, is in the hands of the local mayors that are appointed to the actual commission. I think there's 3 business or General Assembly member appointments that are being considered right now too, but it's not complete bill just yet.
Yeah, my only concern is the division of the General Assembly members from the peninsula and the south side. I don't, just as long as.
The delusion of the local.
Yeah,
the local
no, I just wanted to reflect the population, Brian. The number
Yes, sir.
of
I'm sorry,
General
I'm having
Assembly.
trouble hearing you.
Yeah.
Okay, I've noted that concern, Mayor. We're going to continue to work with both of the patrons to see if we can get that particular piece addressed. But all said, and in total, if you consider the entire package, this really is a good legislative bill that will be a very necessary tool for the regional toolbox to figure out how we best proceed in the coming century on transportation projects. Moving on to education, there are a number of bills that are moving forward to delay or change some aspects of the educational reform that was adopted in the previous 2013 session. Here's just a few themes that are unfolding. One is there are several bills to change the standards of learning revision, the standards of learning, or to revise the standards of learning. The House Republican Caucus is supporting reducing the number of standard of learning tests from 35 to 25. There are bills that have all been consolidated under one legislative bill, HB 930. That's essentially going to be the legislative vehicle for most of the reform that's being considered by the House this year. The Senate has already agreed to several bills on SOLs, including SB 306Ds, and this is a bill that numbers the tests in elementary and middle schools. And then there's another bill carried by Senator Miller that actually allows elementary schools with lower English or math scores to actually be exempted from history and science tests. The next big education theme that we're tracking up here, obviously, is Opportunity Education Institution. We just found out today that HB 113 Marshall did not pass the committee this morning. This was a bill that essentially eliminated OEI's authority from being able to take effect. We do have a couple other bills in play. One is in the Senate Bill 499 Hanger. It actually only delays the transfer of the management of the OEI for 1 year, and the transfer is actually set to begin after the 2013-2014 school year. There's several budget amendments that are working to actually defund OEI. I pulled out a quote from Senate Majority Leader Dick Saslaw, who recently told the press that OEI was a bad idea to begin with, and that he said it would be defunded this session. Obviously, Norfolk has been working in earnest with a large coalition of opponents trying to stop OEI to the extent that we can. Just wanted council to know that up here this session, I've been working extremely close with your former council colleague, Delegate Dawn Hester, and she's been very helpful in trying to encourage various alternative approaches with her new contemporaries on the House Appropriations Committee. So we are weighing in, our delegation is weighing in, and we're just waiting for the final decisions to be made regarding how they wish to proceed. And we will continue to keep you posted. Next topic I'm moving on to is mental health systems reform. Sarah Page Fuller is obviously very interested in this, and that keeps me well up to date with a lot of the association discussion on the legislation that's being considered. The big ones that I wanted to talk to you about has to do with SB 260, Senator Deeds. It requires the state to essentially administer a web-based psychiatric bed registry on psychiatric beds that are available in private and public facilities. The bill also requires the Department of Behavioral Health and Development Services to help local community service boards locate available beds. And finally, this bill would require the Governor's Task Force on Mental Health Services and Crisis Response to actually study options for reducing the amount of law enforcement resources that are going to be used for the involuntary admissions processes. The House is taking the narrower approach as it relates to mental health bills. The House subcommittee recently did recommend that people that are held under emergency custody orders could actually be held for up to 8 hours. There's a couple other bills that talks about the length of stay. But in the end, there will be several substantial mental health laws that are going to be passed, all aimed to improve what is perceived to be current deficiencies in the current statewide provision. And we are trying to weigh in smartly as we can on those matters that seem to make sense for Norfolk specifically. Next topic, red light camera authority. Council, this has been kind of a surprising turn of events in that now we have found that since we have red light cameras, we're now regularly having to defend the authority they actually have them. I want to just say a special thanks to Chief Goldsmith and Public Works Director John Kiefer for sending up representatives to help us defeat this legislation this year. The last bill was defeated this morning in the House Transportation Committee. It did not pass 13-6, but it does seem that generally there are a few members in the General Assembly that have a different interpretation about what localities that have red light cameras are trying to do and what the actual statistics are to demonstrate that this is actually a measure to improve public safety at these intersections. We'll keep you posted on that. There was a bill dealing with stormwater utility fee discounts for churches that failed. Essentially, it was if you were a church that, in addition to property exemptions, they're also planning for attempting to make sure that utility fees also would get specific discounts, and a large number of local governments weighed in opposition to this particular legislation. Almost coming to the end, payday lending. Council, this has been a long-standing issue in the city of Norfolk as far as keeping track of, legislative efforts relating to this. And there were two bills this year actually sponsored by Democrat Senators John Miller and Mamie Locke up on the peninsula. Both of them were voted down in their Senate subcommittees. They could be revived, but it's likely that they will not be. Essentially, the industry lobbyists and several other legislators who voted against the new rules said that there were enough protections in place dealing with payday lending, and any more would actually drive some of the payday lenders out of business, and that it would potentially put more pressure on the community that has a need for these types of services. So all of those bills are done this year. We weighed in with a work group here led by VML to try to affect some type of change, and unfortunately, we're not successful. The last topic that I'm not going to go into any detail has to do with Medicaid expansion. It is clear that this is the issue of the 2014 General Assembly session. There are currently long, protracted discussions that are going on amongst members behind closed doors, but it's starting to show the telltale signs that this is an issue that's likely going to bleed into other legislative issues as we start to approach crossover time. So I think that's the amount of time that I've been allotted, Council. I'm happy to attempt to field any questions you might have.
Do you have any questions, Brian?
I have a question. Brian, this is Councilman Smeagol.
Sir.
Can you hear me? Okay. I see, even though we'll probably have a painful death in the House, that Senator Lucas's bill for casinos has made it through in the Senate,
Sure.
the committee. Last year, there was, I think Councilman Riddick had asked about tacking Norfolk on to that, and she was willing to accept that friendly amendment to it. And I'm not saying I'm promoting gambling or casinos, but is there that opportunity still for that to happen, or since it's already gone through the committee, it's kind of a lost cause?
I would never say a lost cause. I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone? I would not say that it's a lost cause. However, Councilman, there is a mechanism in there to determine eligibility. You have to have 40% of your land non-taxable. I think Norfolk's, last time I checked last year with Deb Bunn, we're at about 36%. So we would not, in fact, be eligible under the bill as she has been introduced currently. I wouldn't say that it's a lost cause. However, the bill actually, despite what the paper reported, it was referred to the Finance Committee, and that's because there's potential financial impacts that are associated and a couple other additional questions. So it definitely is not a done deal, if you will, and there is no companion legislation over in the House chamber. And from talking to a few of the folks that are more involved intimately with this, it doesn't seem that the House leadership is poised to move forward with casino gaming as contemplated in Senator Lucas's bill.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, one last question. The the legislation which pops up about B-pole and machinery and tools,
Yeah.
that didn't come out of committee, is that right?
Well, there's multiple bills, there always is, but the big ones that we were concerned about seem to be losing some steam or being referred to the ongoing efforts to take a look at all taxing and determining the appropriateness and effectiveness of, the local and state and federal taxes and kind of look at how the scheme works. We continue to weigh in as a city that our objection isn't necessarily with whether or not it's a fair tax, that mostly our concern has to do with supplementation of existing dollars that Norfolk receives. I think last count we're receiving about $26 million annually just in B-pole, about $4 million or so in M&T. So obviously this is a funding stream that is very important to us, and but there are several members up here that have different ideas about B-pole, as you know, Mayor.
Okay,
Ask one question.
yes, sir.
Hey, Brian, Paul Riddick,
Sure.
could you speak to the proposal of using or eliminating lethal injection, and that execution would all be by electrocuting?
Yeah, Councilman, that's one of those that is, I would say respectfully, not a local government issue, and I haven't researched it, but I'm happy to pull the bill up and take a closer look and send you some summary points if you'd like me to, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Which bill? This is so that I'm clear. Is there a particular bill in mind?
Yeah, this particular bill, I read about it last week, where one of the senators, I believe, proposed that inmate would not have an option for lethal injection versus electrocution. That would be strictly electrocution. And I think that Senator Wagner spoke to that. I don't remember his position.
I'll do a quick search and shoot you an email and give you a background on that one, sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Brian,
Okay, manager. Any questions from you, sir?
No, you're fine.
Brian,
Yes, sir.
thanks for the great job you're doing.
Hey, thank you, Mary. I appreciate that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, goodbye.
Okay, great. It's not on the agenda, but do we have any council interest anybody wants to talk about, Andy?
Paul, just real quick, the papers cover the regional jail issue.
Yeah.
Pretty well. There are negotiations going on. We have, it was in closed session, those discussions as to the municipality and that, but I think I wouldn't be out of line to say that it's a local municipality that's not part of a regional jail on the south side, and it's not Virginia Beach. So there has been discussions ongoing. There was a committee going to talk to them, bringing them a fair price to join at least temporarily to help relieve some of the cost issues. We're still at that point. I have a meeting end of February 19th or so, and I'll come back to you and tell you what the discussion and the negotiations resulted. But we're hoping that we won't be dipping back into our own pockets to fund it. That's just giving you an update as to what I know.
Thank you. Mr. Riddick?
Yeah, a couple of things. I called the city manager because I was extremely distressed that HRT did not run that third day. The patrons of the bus transportation, a lot of them don't have liberal leave policies, they don't have sick or annual leave, and they depend upon us for transportation. Now, it seems to me that HRT or our city should have had a spider out and recognized the fact that that those bus shelters were blocked or barricaded. And it just seems that with a city manager and a head of a regional facility that was a former city manager, it just seems to me that this should not have happened. And I don't know how, and those individuals, as I said, most of them don't have sick and annual leave. They missed a day's pay that they needed. And, you see all of these HRT commercials about, getting people here and getting people there. And I just think it was awful that even after the third day, the first day we might recognize, but the third day was just awful, that we could not get those passengers to and from work or wherever they were going. And Marcus assured me that it would never happen again. And nobody's pointing any fingers. Somebody just dropped a proverbial ball. And we look awful. We look like Atlanta, Georgia. We're not being probably publicized like Atlanta, but we should feel like Atlanta. We should feel extremely disappointed in the transit and our Public Works Department for making this happen. Secondly, I sent all of you a copy of a letter that I wrote to Governor McAuliffe in regards to a cash lane on the bridge on the Midtown and downtown tunnel. Now, construction has not begun yet, and certainly if they go back and change the construction, is going to cost some money. I don't know how many thousands. I started to ask John Kuiper, didn't get a chance to give me an estimate. But you can go from Florida to Maine, and you will not go anywhere that does not have a cash lane. And it's just ridiculous for us to be right here and to put our military, as I mentioned in here, the people who have to go back and forth to the Naval Hospital, to funerals that are going to Horton Cemetery, and also a dependent wife who might have a child to take back and forth to the Naval Hospital. We have been virtually silent about the tunnels and all the issues because we're the beneficiaries. There are people coming to our medical center to work, coming to Old Dominion, going to the naval base. But in this particular issue, I would like to have a resolution drawn up and we can vote it up and down. But I think we need to push forward to see what we can do because this thing is going to be there forever. And while the construction is going on, I believe now's the time to put a cash lane in there to benefit those individuals who are just going back and forth, every once in a while. Now I've purchased a couple of transponders and they work, but for individuals who are just going to run over there for medical treatment or go into a funeral, you might have 20 or 30 cars, and if all of those are popped, and I think it's just really unfair that that they didn't even think about that in the beginning. Governor McAuliffe had enough foresight to come in and get the tolls at a palatable point, although there's several people who are still disappointed that there is a toll period, but everywhere you go, you're going to find a toll if you travel. But I really believe that we need to push and to ask them to reconfigure their construction and make a cash lane on both of those tunnels going each way.
Or a realtor, Mr. Riddick, occasionally showing property over
Yeah,
endorsement.
I mean, they were just short-sighted in not putting a cash lane there. Now, I know the public works people want to get traffic going as fast as possible, but you just have to think about people. And once they get that thing completed, it's going to be there forever. And I really believe that they're going to be unjustly enriched by charging that extra fee for people who don't have transponders. Between you and the manager, I'd like to see, we can talk about it, see where it goes from here. Thank you, that's all I have.
I don't have anything.
Just real quickly, and I may be the only one that doesn't understand this, but our city, that's right, Mr. Sanderlin?
Auditor.
Yes, so is he an employee then of all the constitutional officers and city council? I'm not saying that I'm against this investigation, but I was curious that,
It's not it's an audit, it's not an investigation.
right, okay, an audit.
Right.
And so does he work for all of the constitutional officers and city council? So
We have
I
money
was
down there.
concerned how,
Partially fund that.
so,
He has a right
but
to go
our
in.
constitutional officers can request audits even though he works for us, is that right?
They have in the past, yes.
Okay.
Says the sheriff's department.
I just wasn't privy to other audits, thanks.
Oh, me? Okay, I don't have any. I talked to Mr. Jones and expressed some concerns last week.
On the HRT snow removal issue, is it possible, I think I ran this by you on school buses and you gave me an explanation on that, but it may, and we don't get snow very often, but perhaps we could coordinate our snow removal with the HRT bus routes. So like on that first day, yeah, their responsibility, our partial responsibility was, to get the major arteries and everything like that. But maybe at some kind of shared cost in the event of a snowstorm, we could coordinate our snow removal efforts with the bus routes, and then also finding out who's responsible for the bus shelters, because we came by and removed snow, but it was like we just shoved it from the street to the side, and that further created a blockage for people getting to the shelters and for HRT's buses getting, to the shelter to be able to pick up people. So some of that, I think too, was the way, even though Public Works was great and they, a lot of people praised the work that they did, but I think maybe we might be able to just look at how we can do it better in the future, even though we are not a snow-prone area.
To your point, and I know we have a long schedule today, but we'll make sure it's available in your Dropbox. I think Jim Reddick did a very good job with coordinating efforts. There were phone calls each day with HRT, with other cities, other city managers, other public works staff, and he has provided for you basically an account of last week, and it does take into account some of the things that you've said. So he's here to answer any questions, but we also will make sure we give you this presentation that talks a bit about how we coordinate to try to make sure that we don't have those issues. Yes.
The other thing is, we had great representation in the Super Bowl on Sunday. I don't know where the Broncos were, but Seattle did a great job, and we have a hometown hero, if you will, who was part of that Super Bowl team. And so I talked to Breck about working with the Norfolk Public Schools to possibly do a parade or a key to the city or some kind of city recognition for Cam Chancellor. He's not one of those guys that just, made it big and forgot that he came from Norfolk. He always comes back and he, gives back, as a lot of the former athletes who've done well. But I think it's something, their performance was great, and I think it's something that we should celebrate. And so I put Brock in touch with his publicist to try to work the dates and things like that out around with his schedule and everything. But I think we should do something to acknowledge that performance. And then the last thing I have is just, I've gotten as the tax season comes up and everybody knows that we start talking about taxes and the budget and everything like that, I'm getting calls about real estate tax relief and what are we gonna do and when are we gonna do anything. I just really think that is something that we need to take another look at. I understand the budgetary issues and I understand, the implications for the future, but we just took it. I mean, in the eyesight of the citizens, we just took it. We said, we're not gonna completely relieve it. We're gonna defer it, and we completely changed the rules of the game. And even when we make changes to zoning ordinances and things like that, there's always some leeway for existing citizens, existing rules. And I just think we need to look at how we did that and go back and fix it to make it right. Because I think a lot of innocent people have been very, very hurt by what we did. So, and the last thing is, when we do school board presentations, can we get those in the Dropbox? We kill a lot of trees when they come.
Okay. Sure.
And they need to save that money in their budget.
Yeah, they can say, that's exactly right. That's it, that's all I have.
I want to echo what Councilwoman Williams said about senior tax relief, and I think we're going to hear it next week from what I'm hearing at the meeting. I have a quick, easy thing. I normally don't do this, but I have a traffic issue that's starting to brew because the neighbors are talking Broadfield and Portal. There's speeding happening. They said they've contacted traffic engineers and they're not doing anything about it. And I have a little map, so I'm going to bring it up publicly. So, but everybody over at Public Works is always really good. The other issue is with the snow removal, and I'm not going to criticize our city because I don't think that any city in this area could handle what happened at 100%. And I don't think every city was perfect. I don't know if any. I have relatives in other cities. I think it's more of a marketing kind of thing with how the city gets their information out. And I think we've done the best we've ever done with social media. I think contacting the press. I think Lori and Jim and the way they communicated. But for some reason, the press, two of the TV outlets decided to make Norfolk the focus of not properly removing snow.
You saw that too.
Yeah,
I was
and
really
I'm
worried
trying to
about
figure out because I'm calling my sister who lives in Virginia Beach and she's complaining and telling me what Virginia Beach isn't doing, and I talked to my parents in Hampton and they're telling me what Hampton's not doing. But Norfolk, for some reason, just got this brunt of this. We don't do a good job cleaning our roads up. Maybe it's because we have more transplants for the Northeast where they know how to handle snow.
And those are stations that
I-
are located in Norfolk
I
too,
know.
by the
I'm
way.
trying to figure out what happened with this. But I think we can always learn from this, and I think you guys have been proactive with taking criticism and back. And I think Jim's addressing some issues that happened. I just wanted to bring up two things. I think it took a long time for Public Works to get to the north end of the city, and that was the impression that came back from a lot of people that I was following on Facebook, and as I was posting updates. You know, when we're posting pictures of downtown Norfolk streets looking completely black and clean, and we still have other streets, I think they saw that and they said, well, where are they? So maybe in the next storm, we can park some trucks on that side of the city and we work to the middle or something, I don't know. But I think the bigger issue is how we communicate things to the city, to our citizens. And, you know, we have a good Facebook page and the likes are increasing. But we have a lot of elderly people who do not Facebook. And we rely on the TV stations to tell them about trash pickups being canceled and things like that. And when they don't do a good job or when they stop covering for 24 hours, and then we don't get the scroll of that, then who is telling these folks about that? And I've said this before, and I think we really need to look into it because the school system has this, an auto dialer system. We have all those phone numbers in utilities and people pay bills. We have phone numbers on record. Let's just develop our own system. Let's buy our own auto dialer system. If they're not that expensive, and let's do a reverse 911 and call people and tell them about when we change trash things. If you go out through any neighborhood in Ward 5, you're going to see recycling bins still sitting out on the curb because they think that the city's coming to pick up recycling. And that's a big issue with me on TFC. They're not coming and doing makeup and so people put their bins out thinking that they're going to get it made up, and they're going to sit out there because in my ward we missed it, and we have to wait 2 weeks now before our recycling's picked up. And they say, oh yeah, you can put extra bags out there, clear bags. But how many people know that? If they're not in a civic league or they're not following me on Facebook, how do people know this information? Do we expect them to call Norfolk Cares and hear a recording on this? We have to find out a way to get to everybody in a more proactive way and let them know what we're doing, or that we do have trucks that are coming to clean up Little Creek Road and Ocean Avenue. We're getting there. So we did a good job, but I think we could get better with this. And I think we need to utilize the same system that the school system uses. When they cancel school, they call every parent and every teacher and let them know that school's canceled. Why can't we do the same thing with trash pickup and other things? Are we violating any type of privacy rules or anything by doing that? But I think we should do it. I don't know of any other cities that do it, but let's show the news people that, you know, hey, highlight Norfolk next time because we were so proactive in this way. And we called all of our citizens and told them, don't take your trash out for 3 days and we're going to pick them up this weekend. Just leave it out at 8 and we'll be by there. By the way, don't put your recycling bins out because we're not coming for 2 weeks.
And it had been 2 weeks before that.
Yeah, and there are places that lost their recycling the week before, and so we're all behind. You guys are going to get tons of recycling from me, but I just want us to be, you know, thoughtful of that. And so when I get criticism from citizens, and some of them are just mean. I mean, they're just really mean about what the city doesn't do. And I look at that and I learned that as I grow in this position that I can't take everything they say, but they do have some valid reasons. concerns, and we need to try to figure out productive ways to handle it. So,
Okay, that's all I got.
All right, thank you. So we'll go to Sabrina.
Good evening. Last time, I think you asked us to come back so we can finish up the compensation pieces of the mid-year presentation.
You have to speak up a little bit, please.
So just as a 1 to 2 minute recap of where we left off, we started off with the $20 million gap. That's our preliminary estimate. That's customary in how we do budgets. We've brought it down to a $9.4 million gap that we haven't closed yet. Eventually, when we produce the budget for you, we will be at a zero gap. So flipping ahead back to the compensation pieces, I believe we were here when we started talking about the employee salaries over the course of the years. As you can see, we've actually provided quite a bit of increases over the years. We've been consistent up until when the Great Recession hit us. At that point, we could no longer afford it. We used to be able to give about 5 or 6% increases between GWI and steps, and it's been 0% in 10, 0 in 11. In 12, we did have a $500 bonus, and in 13, we were able to give 2% as well as in 2014. So if we take a quick look at the regional comparison, as I said last time, Norfolk is the only locality that was able to provide a 2% increase in both fiscal year 2013 and 14.
Can
And
you
we-
go back? Can you
sure.
go- I mean, the beach in 3 years has given 3.5, 4, 5. We've given 4 in 2 years, okay.
And this doesn't include the compensation adjustments for the VRS, the 5 and 5 that they did.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about ARMED, which is our attraction, retention, motivation, and development of our employees. And the plan that we presented to you back at the retreat time, we really haven't changed much from that, but we are going to present an alternative proposal to you today. Of course, it does cost more, but we can talk it through. In 2014, we said that we would review the compensation plan and talk to our employees, which we've done. In 2015, we talked about possibly doing the 5 and 5 conversion, the drop for sworn officers, out-of-market adjustments, a living wage adjustment, and some funds to address egregious internal equity issues. In 2016, at the time, we also talked about having a 1% general wage increase for all employees. What came out of the conversations with the employees was, the general employees was, they were okay with getting rid of the step system that we had because it was a little inflexible, as long as we provided them a plan of compensation, a steady plan of compensation. As I said earlier, the sworn officers, our public safety folks, didn't want to get rid of the step system. So in 2016, we also talked about addressing the compression issues that we have. So we suggested maybe a 1, 2, or 3% increase for eligible employees. These would be employees from 2011 and prior that did not receive a step increase. So the employees that came in afterwards, somehow they also came in at the same range. So we have that compression issue going on. So we would start to address some of the compression issues in 2016. Also, a 1-step increase for eligible sworn officers, again, to address those compression issues. In 2017, we said maybe we would do a ongoing 1 to 4% increase. There's your steady plan that the employees have asked for, which may be triggered by our revenue. And we'd have to set up some sort of model that would help us to achieve a 1 to 4% steady financial wage increase. And some of these numbers have changed, and I'll tell you that some of these numbers will continue to change as we get closer to the presentation of the city manager's budget, and that's because we'll get updated payroll data. So the VRIP, we suggested that we would do in 15, which we have done. We've completed that. But that does have an ongoing cost of $234,000 in retirement. The 5 and 5 conversion is estimated to cost about $330,000, and that's because of your FICA and your group life goes up a little bit. Your living wage adjustments is projected to cost about $100,000. Market rate adjustments, we talked quite a bit about market rate adjustments back at the retreat. projected to cost about $950,000. And the DROP program, which doesn't have an immediate cost to us, but will have a cost to the retirement system in the upcoming year, is about $612,000. And then the funds to address the internal equity. These are the egregious equity issues that we face, and some of it would be vertical compression, which is where an employee makes more than a supervisor. And those would be case-by-case basis. And then we said, because we don't have a lot of resources at this time, we would save the rest for 2016. So at that point, we said 1% GWI for all employees would cost us about $2 million. And again, to address the compression issues of 1%, 2%, or 3% for general employees would cost us about $1.2 million. And a one-step increase for sworn officers would be $1.3 million. So that's a total of $4.7 million just in 2016. But what you're not seeing in the 2016 column is the ongoing costs of what we've done in 2015. So if you take the $330,000 of the 5 and 5 conversion, you'd move it to the 2016 column. The $100,000 moves over, the $950,000 moves over, and so on. So the total cost at that point would be about $8.3 million, including the retirement estimated costs. So we didn't put that on the slide because we didn't want to confuse the issue. We wanted you to see the actual incentives.
Sabrina,
Yes, sir.
do you have a handle on what our payment into the retirement fund will be this year? I mean, shouldn't it be less than we paid last year?
Yes, it is less. And actually, we're at a very good funded status. I believe we're at 82.3%. And we did pick up some savings, which has already been factored into the 9.4 gap. We've already brought it down.
Okay. Beat me to it, okay, all right.
Sabrina, do we have anything in here for retirees, or am I missing it?
No,
Or
we
that
do
comes
not
from
have
her?
anything in here for retiree COLAs.
Okay, and I guess I need to ask the manager to, maybe look at that, and I'm not gonna ask you why right now. I know it's money, but, I think we really need to take in consideration that our retirees, do need to be considered. I don't know, the last time, when did we give them something?
2 years
I
ago.
think it's 2 years ago.
Years ago,
Councilman Rennick and Sabrina can do a much better job. One of the things with the COLA is new accounting standards, which we've had an ad hoc COLA, which basically means whenever we can give it, whenever the council approves it, they approve it, versus the Virginia retirement system that has an ongoing COLA. There's a bit of concern that at some point, that right now in her retirement numbers, she doesn't include anything that considers an ongoing COLA. But if we have a pattern of providing a COLA to the retirees, it changes the whole model, which would be additional costs like that, right? Magnitude.
I think the liability right now, well, it may cost us about $800,000 in the next year that we provide COLA in actual cash out. The liability is over $2 million over the lifetime. But with the accounting standards, they will automatically fit liability into the calculation when they say this is your unfunded status. So it has quite a bit of implications.
yeah. But how do we take care of our retirees? Can we try to figure that out? And if the council, if it's
How
the
many
will of the
retirements do
council?
we have? How many?
Yeah.
Don't know the number offhand, sorry.
I agree with Riddick. I think we need to do something.
Would you say
Is that 5,000?
5,000?
Marcus, maybe it's something you could figure out and come back to us with.
Sure. Have you looked into a one-time thing for retirees too? Like a one?
It's always one time, and
Yeah.
It is always one time.
That's why it can't be
Just-
systematic.
yeah, that's why I
said.
Right.
So it
when
has
we
to
didn't do it last year, we got a little relief from this unfunded, from the.
But one of the problems now is that they're looking at patterns. So if you do 1 year, skip 2 years, do 1 year, skip 2 years, they would still consider that's a pattern. And at some point, they would call it a liability. So what we'll do is we'll give you the magnitude of what that would do to your funded status, and then it becomes a council decision.
And these accounting changes actually go into effect for the retirement system this year, and it will go on the city's books the next year.
We really have 5,000. Who said that?
Maybe a little bit under 5,000, that's very close to
People living longer.
Okay, so again, these numbers will change, and this is an equitable way of doing it. So we can We can do an equitable GWI increase for everyone, but then that won't be equitable. So it's equity without equity. So let me just clarify that a little bit. So if we give everybody a 1% or a 2%, you're not addressing the compression issues that have occurred over the past few years. So if we wanted to address the equity issues, you really need to start segregating the folks that have not received increases from prior years compared to the ones who have come in now. So alternative scenarios that we have, again, the first, all the way up until funds to address equity remain the same as the previous slides. But then you would say a 1% GWI for employees this year, or in 15, I'm sorry, July 1 of 15, would cost us about $1.1 million. In January 1, for sworn officers, if we were to give them half a year of a step increase for eligible sworn, again, that would be addressing the compression issue, cost us about $800,000. And so total of that in 2015 would be about $3.4 million. If we move into 2016, we'd say a 1% GWI for all employees would cost us about $2 million. A 1 to a 3% increase for general employees would cost us about $1.2 million, and that's to address the compression issues, because we're not addressing compression issues for general employees in 15 in this scenario. And then in 2016, it would be a one-step increase for sworn officers starting January 1st again at about $900,000. But because in 2015, we've started to address the compression issues for sworn officers, we wouldn't do it in 16. Again, all of this has retirement costs, and if we put all the ongoing costs, what's in 2015 carried over to 2016, the bottom line total where you say 6.5 would actually be about $10 million. And again, this only starts to address the market rate adjustments at the tip of the iceberg. We've got a long way to go where Virginia Beach's policy is to be the highest paid in the region. So we have a neighbor that's very competitive. And neither one of these scenarios include any new enhancements that we have that may be coming down the line that departments have requested. It also doesn't include the additional cost that we're projecting for the regional jail. The latest figure that we got was about $1.5 million. I know that Councilman Protojuros spoke earlier about how the committee was working to get that number down. There will be a resolution coming to you probably next week that addresses the reserve that the regional jail holds from 90 to 60 days, and that's been discussed with the financial advisor. And as long as all of the councils in the regional participating cities agree to it, they can bring that reserve down from 90 to 60 days. So our original projections for the regional jail was about $2.3 million. It's down to about $1.5 million. That is part of that gap that we have.
That doesn't include what we perhaps can do with regard to our contract.
Correct.
Which is what I talked about, because we could really plug that in for all the cities. The issue of reserve is it doesn't affect our bond status because, of course, the jail has bonds also. It doesn't affect our bond status. It's reserves that have been set aside. As we have reserves here at the city, we're just asking to shrink it down. That's something we discussed. I think it came out of finance. I asked you, Sabrina, and you said, and we're blessed to have Stanley, who has tremendous corporate knowledge, that is on the finance committee at the regional jail. So it's just part of doing business. The reserves of 90 days may have been, it's great to have it, but we need to dip into that now to not affect all of us.
So Sabrina, the 9.4 includes the 1.5?
Yes, we're carrying that because it is an ongoing cost that we have.
So I was just here thinking, what about it? Is this too premature to talk about new money that we might have from the Waterside Live, the Conference Center, or the Simons Project? Is it too premature to start counting that as a way to, help our retirees, help our employees? And I know we're talking about the 16 budget would be July of 15. So nothing will be online by then from these three projects. I know Simons won't, but Waterside Live and the Conference Center, will they be online by then?
In terms of getting a full year of revenue by July 1 of 2015, no, sir.
Okay.
So,
Now, there's the future.
But it is in the future, exactly right.
But we are being relieved of some costs at Waterside
Yes,
within a few months.
yes.
That will help us. I mean, is that calculated in your 9.4?
I'm sorry?
Once they actually get the key to Waterside, which will be in about 3 or 4 months is what I understand.
Right.
They then will have to start paying the taxes. Is that built into your 9.4? And we're also getting relieved of that cost.
In your
Never mind.
9.4, is you carry nothing for costs
Right,
associated with
correct.
Waterside. She doesn't carry any cost.
Okay.
Right, because we had money budgeted for repair, I think the roof for maintenance, so that's been taken out of that already. I'm sure you
Half
did.
of this year
Yeah,
already.
okay, that's what I thought.
CIP,
Yeah.
that's different.
No, he's also talking about the operating.
Operating stuff, yeah, all of it. Just let it fall before they.
Paying electricity, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I know you're wondering how are we going to pay for this? There are some strategies that we are working on to bring down some of the gap and also address some of this because we do know that our employees are important and we are trying to make this work. One of them is the SWAT teams that we spoke about last time, which is the interdisciplinary teams with the city attorney's office and the auditor on it. We're looking at all of the back office functions where we can combine some maybe payroll or finance and maybe maintenance between all the departments that are housed centrally. We are also looking at things like printing, where do we turn on lights, where do we turn them off? And we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. So if we looked at just in terms of closing the $9.4 million gap and we took an average salary of a city employee with benefits, and we're using the high number, it would take about 170 positions to close that gap. So if we take if we can achieve 10 vacancies or even more than that, 20, 23, 25 vacancies that we can pull out of our system to make some of this happen, we will. So last time, I need to correct something. Last time we talked about police, public safety receiving some compensation changes throughout the years. It was actually only police that received it. In 2009, the Police Appointment and Retention Initiative was passed, and that increased the police recruit starting pay, and it also revised the compensation plan to allow for three intervals where they would get 5.8 step increases, and those occur, I believe, at step 2, 6, and 10. So they go from the regular step increase to actually a 5.8% increase when they cross those thresholds. Some things about police and fire are they do have some other programs available to them. Police have a sworn officer program, and we provide at least about $500,000 in average annual cost to that. And police officers who qualify for this program receive about $500 a month. Fire and rescue, they also have a master firefighter program, and so far it's cost us about $133,000 in 2013. That is an ongoing cost. They did have a hiatus there for a while when the city did not have funds to provide for this program. We started it back up again in 2013. They also have automatic promotional opportunities as they reach certain stages. So, Councilwoman Green, you asked about attraction and retention last week. And yes, and we constantly have this conversation with our HR folks and how do we get good quality candidates to apply. We do get a lot of applicants, but it's a matter of identifying the quality applicants to come on board. What we do is we do advertising for job postings, targeted job postings. We send folks to job fairs, and we conduct targeted recruitments. One of our goals is to offer competitive salaries. That's always a big thing, and that's part of the ARMED initiative. And also, at some point, when revenues come back up, maybe we can do bonuses and hire on bonuses, and then maybe interval bonuses that we can provide for the retention of those employees. So moving.
Come back over here. I was listening to what Councilwoman Green said about the upfront initiative that they used to have in other public schools. I mean, in the economy that we have now, where people have been out of work for a long time, if that's something that we might be able to look at implementing as city employees, that won't cost, it's not any extra money. So if you're paying someone $30,000 and you give them $1,000 up front and split the other $29,000 throughout the year, that might be something that is worth looking at from a city side, because if you've got somebody who's been on unemployment for 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 months and that they've barely been making it, that $1,000 could be the difference between they may not make, we may not pay them as much, but that $1,000 upfront may make the difference in them coming to us or going to another city.
It made a difference for
Yeah.
me because
Yeah.
I was moving and I needed money to help with moving into an apartment. And that having that 1,000, and I was only, like I said, making 30,000, so my salary was spread out as 29. That 1,000 made a difference with me getting settled into as a brand new teacher. A teacher's a little bit different because they have a contract, and so you would have to obviously build in language because they might not stay a full year. So you would have to find a way to get money back.
Some
I
of
guess, on
them are
that.
brand new, fresh out of college.
College, they need that many.
And
Yeah.
the city might be looking for more experienced workers and have to use a different incentive.
It's free, right? I mean, is it free generally?
We'd have to set it up in that manner. Yes. So some of the, we asked our HR folks to look at the current research that's out there on why employees leave. And pay is not the only reason that people leave. They leave because of relationships with their supervisors or managers, opportunity for promotions, stress, and pay is just one of the reasons. And why employees stay in a job is that they see career growth, meaningful work, what they're doing means something to somebody, good work relationships, autonomy and flexibility, and fair pay and benefits. Our strategies that we have right now, and we'd like to increase these at some point, is to provide a consistent compensation plan, as we've talked about here. Salary adjustments for bonuses and exemplary performance. I know the manager has talked a lot about putting the executives and the senior level on a performance management type of program where it's merit-based rather than a blanket GWI approach. He's very strong on evaluations and has required all of his department heads to do evaluations in a consistent manner and provide means for advancement and career development. You know, when somebody sees there's a career ladder, it helps them to see the future with us. We also started back the tuition reimbursement. I believe that was in 2013, tuition reimbursement program for our employees. We offer training programs, and our HR department started the Supervisor Leadership Academy, which we're trying to get that second level of supervisors trained and ready to come into a directorship or some sort of leadership position. I've heard nothing but good things about that program. And I think that concludes it, and we'd like to have your input, your strategies.
Sabrina,
Yes, sir.
if one of the cost-saving strategies is, have we looked at privatizing some employee-heavy services, save for benefits and whatnot? I'm not talking about laying people off, but, you know, for instance, the recycling. If we analyze how much that's saving us over what we were doing ourselves, or if it is saving money.
We're actually in the process of analyzing that now, and we anticipated savings, so what we anticipated, we picked up in the 2014 budget already, but I think there's probably more. Once we have those results, we'll get them to you.
If that's working, you know, are there other ways we could tiptoe into doing, you know, some of those services?
Sure.
Because not only do you, I think in this economy, like the president says recession's over, it's not over. And I think you can get some pretty competitive prices on some of it. Without laying people off. I'm not talking about layoffs or, you know, I know we looked at janitorial service one time. Is that privatized or are we doing it ourselves?
We got out of the business of doing the janitorial
Have
services.
we analyzed whether we're saving?
We saved millions doing
Yes.
that.
Well, okay.
We did.
So, I mean, there are, I think that's a way without negatively impact, actually positively impact our employees, our services. In the private sector, if you don't do the job, you don't get paid. So
Right.
I just would not forget that as a potential.
Sure, we agree.
You know, and I might, and this was a good presentation, as we sit here and we prioritize that education needs this, and, you know, we need more snow removal, and we need this, and we need this, and we need that, but, oh, by the way, let's cut, you know, let's reduce tax, I mean, we're not gonna raise taxes, but we're talking about, you know, seniors and pensions, retirees, and I mean, And we're all sympathetic to all of that, but I think we have to be realistic that cost of living is going through the roof, and we're asking more. Every time somebody comes in here, they're saying, and rightfully so, education is, as we say, is 1, 2, and 3 on the list. They're gonna come back with a big number, because said come back with a big number. We have to watch how we are gonna slice things that are making it work now in a very tight economy. You know, I think senior tax relief, we all would like for everybody to pay less senior tax. But where are we gonna make that money up? And by the way, do all these things or we're prioritizing here and piling on management and staff raises and so I just think we need to keep that in mind as we keep saying more, that we've got to get it somewhere. All the rabbits have come out of the hat for the last few years. I'm not sure there are many more in there. That's my perception. For what it's worth.
On the employees, that list that you had about why employees stay, and one of the top reasons is career growth. Do we do anything, I know Capri does a great job in HR, do we do anything with employees who are looking to move up? Because that is a big deal when you feel like you have to wait for somebody to die or retire before you're gonna get a promotion. Do we do anything with our employees that are, say, like maybe at the entry level or what have you, to help them to be able to better apply for other city jobs? Because a lot of that stuff is computer driven when it comes to shaking out the application process. So maybe we could do something for employees that we do a lot of trainings in computers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But there are a lot of people who would like to move up and they see applications, you know, for jobs on the city, and then they apply and nothing happens, or they don't get it, or somebody outside the city gets it when they have the application. And it might be something as simple as how they're going about inputting the information. If you haven't looked for a job in a while, you're kind of out of that loop. So that might be something that we could consider to just give our existing employees a better opportunity at getting the jobs by helping them properly describe what their skills and stuff, you know.
Thank you. And then I believe Alice is going to give us an update on
This is
it.
gonna be really exciting. We have, our variable rate demand bonds require a couple of agreements that are expiring in the next few months. And so I wanted to give you a short briefing on that. Different than fixed rate bonds, variable rate demand bonds require a few more administrative and contracts for them to be successfully marketed. And so we need a liquidity facility, a trustee, a remarketing agent, and an optional interest rate cap. And there's some benefits for variable rate demand bonds, that they have a lower fixed rate, lower rate than fixed rate debt. There's a flexibility to allow to prepay the debt, and then unfortunately there's some risks. There's interest rate risks, and then investors can put the bonds back and ask for their money back. And so that's why we want a liquidity facility to be able to pay them if we can't find any other bond purchasers. Our variable rate demand bonds, we have $29 million outstanding. We did a liquidity facility RFP. We got 8 responses. We have RBC. It was our most advantageous proposal. And at the same time that we do the liquidity facility, we also want to do our remarketing agent at the same time. And we're also putting in the ordinance that we would like to have an interest rate cap. And if we need to procure something, and if it's advantageous, we'd like the city manager to be able to have the authority to do that at that time. So our recommendation is to approve the ordinance to enter into a new standby bond purchase agreement for a new liquidity facility provider, a remarketing agent agreement, and then authorize the city manager to procure an interest rate cap, should it be in the best interest of the city. And so our next steps is we have the council ordinance, and we will receive a bond rating and then remarket the week of the March 10th.
What do we save?
There's no money, actually, there's no money saved, and actually, quite frankly, this is gonna cost a little bit more because the interest rates have moved. So when we do variable rate bonds, the interest rate is lower than the fixed rate, but we have that already budgeted into our debt service. So this is just something that every 5 years, we need to go out for a new liquidity facility provider. Last time it was about 76,000, this time it's about 136,000.
Really poorly in economics in college, so I'm sorry. I don't understand.
What's the
some of this.
benefit? I mean, especially in this economy.
So,
Okay,
The
so-
benefit of variable rates?
Yeah, so,
First of all, let me, just because it helps me if I begin.
Sure.
What is our total bond, if you know now, what is our total bonding amount and what percentage or what amount of that is variable rate?
We have 3%, a little bit under 3% is variable rate, so we have about $1 billion worth of bonds outstanding.
And so that's a fixed rate that we have.
A fixed
Now-
rate from 97% of it.
97%, exactly.
Right.
That's what, we're saying the same thing.
Sure.
With the 3% that's variable rate, in this economy, why are you talking about going to I guess we're keeping the variable
We're
rate.
keeping the variable rate, and what you have to do with
What's the-
variable rate, you need to have administration, and you need to have a remarketing agent, because with variable rate
Right.
demand bonds, people can demand and put their money back.
All right, well,
And
hang
so
on,
you
you're
have to-
way down the road on me. So
Okay.
I want to know your economics of it. I'm not
Sure.
worried about
Sure.
how you do it. I want to know
Okay.
the economics of it, if it's beneficial to be on a variable rate.
Sure.
So if we have 3% as variable rate, what's the benefit of keeping it variable rate?
Can you go to the
Right
last-
now,
Can you go
in
to the
this
last
economy.
slide? I don't know how to change that.
so Alice,
This one.
if I'm right to answer his question, your variable rate is still gonna be lower than your fixed rate.
Yes, our variable rate interest has been on average 0.94%. Our fixed bond rate is about 3.74.
All right,
Percent.
and in doing that, and if we keep that, then why aren't we have more at variable rates if that's the
And quite
case?
frankly, we are looking at that because the recommendation from GFOA is about 20%. We want to be conservative in our variable rate because there are interest rate fluctuations, and if you see on this graph,
Can
it
you
could go
cap
up
your
higher.
variable rate?
You can get an interest rate cap, which is what we're recommending that we buy.
Well, that's what
So
I'm
that
saying.
if we go to, interest rates are so terribly low right now that it's not in our economic interest to buy an interest rate cap right now. But as we go forward, there might be a time where we want to strike that and get the interest rate cap.
But
We
it's-
had one and it expired in April 2010. And so we let it expire because the interest rates were so low. But it's at the point where we want to make sure that if it's advantageous economically to get one, we want to go buy that.
What do we follow to come up with that rate? I mean, are you looking at 10-year treasuries? What do you look at to get this 0.94%? What's the benchmark that's used?
SIMPA is our benchmark, and every week it recalculates, and every week we get an email saying what our variable rate is. This week it was 0.5%. 2 weeks ago, it was our lowest ever, it was at 0.4%. So it's been very, very low. And so instead of, having an interest rate cap, we don't need one yet because it's just so low. Back in 2008, when I was acting finance director 5 years ago, 2 months into my tenure, it went up to 8%. It was very scary. We had an interest rate cap at that time because the market dictated that. We did not have to use it though, because it didn't stay at 8% for more than a month.
Right, but treasuries in the last 3 weeks have fluctuated from almost 3%.
Sure.
Or at 3%
Sure.
back down to what, 2.64, 2.68 in there. I mean, there's a lot of fluctuation in that market.
And that's what
I'm saying is.
variable
are we-
rate will fluctuate because investors, it's because they're called in variable rate demand, they can demand their money back. So that keeps the interest rate very low. And so we get advantages of that. Unfortunately, the interest rates could rise too. And so there's no cap on it. Where fixed rate is fixed at whatever we say for 30 years. So there's pros and cons to having variable versus fixed. And to be more conservative, it's fixed, but there's cost savings to variable.
Well, that's why I appreciate it. I learned a lot, so thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. So the ordinance will come out next February 11th. Thank you.
So we're down to the final open session presentation.
The most exciting
Yes.
one.
It's pretty tough to beat that.
Wastewater is always exciting.
Which is always the case.
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. My presentation this afternoon is intended to give you all a briefing on the proposed hybrid wastewater consolidation plan, how it was developed, how it would work, why Norfolk should participate. And at your February 25th meeting, City Council will be asked to act on Norfolk's participation in this plan. Currently, all of Hampton Roads localities and Hampton Roads Sanitation District are under enforcement action by the Environmental Protection Agency and the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows. And each locality and Hampton Roads Sanitation District are required to develop wet weather management plans to reduce overflows. And they're called wet weather management plans because overflows occur most often during wet weather events because groundwater and surface water get into the pipes and the manholes. You may recall that from a briefing that you got last fall that some consultants did a study for Hampton Roads Sanitation District that concluded that the region could save hundreds of millions of dollars in capital expenditures by implementing a regional wet weather management plan as opposed to each locality doing their own individual plan. And that study, as a result, recommended full consolidation of the region's wastewater assets under Hampton Roads Sanitation District. And that recommendation was not acted upon because the localities, including Norfolk, expressed numerous concerns about transferring ownership and operation of their systems to Hampton Roads Sanitation District. And among those concerns were such things as who would decide when the systems are expanded, what kind of governance would there be over some sort of fully regionalized system, and how could customer service levels be the same as what they currently are today. A hybrid plan was developed to capture the savings that are associated with full consolidation without causing the concerns that the localities had with full consolidation. And under this hybrid plan, HRSD would assume responsibility for developing, and of course with locality input, and implementing a regional wet weather management plan. And HRSD would make all the regional wet weather management plan improvements to the locality's sewer system at their expense, and then they dedicate ownership of the improvements to the localities. Under this hybrid plan, the localities would continue to own, operate, and maintain their own wastewater collection systems. And the localities would be relieved of the obligation to develop and implement their own wet weather management plans. And the localities would also be relieved of the liability associated with wet weather overflows once the regional wet weather management plan was fully implemented. It's important to realize, though, that the localities would still have to address all the structural and grease and other problems that their systems have during dry weather, which is most of the time. An important question for everybody involved is how would this hybrid plan affect rates? And it's critical to realize that both Hampton Roads Sanitation District and locality wastewater rates can be expected to increase, whether we do full consolidation, the hybrid model, or no consolidation. The key is that the amount of the increase for wet weather improvements is estimated to be less if they're addressed regionally rather than on an individual basis. And the amount of the increase needed for dry weather improvements is not expected to change because much of our wastewater infrastructure is currently beyond its useful life and failing. A memorandum of agreement was developed to define this hybrid plan, and it was developed with input from all the localities' attorneys and Hampton Roads Sanitation District's attorneys. And this memorandum of agreement has been reviewed by the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Environmental Quality, and they've agreed to allow the wet weather management plan to be addressed regionally only if all the localities and Hampton Roads Sanitation District approve this memorandum of agreement by February 28th. And it's my understanding that the staffs from all the area localities in Hampton Roads Sanitation District are recommending to their governing boards that they approve this memorandum of agreement. And many of them were scheduled to act last Tuesday, but the meetings were delayed because of weather. Since a regional approach to wastewater system regulatory compliance is projected to be the most cost-effective for Norfolk and the region, city staff is recommending that City Council approve an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute this memorandum of agreement by the end of the month. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
What effect would this have on the present employees?
I don't anticipate it would have any effect at all on the existing employees. We'd still be maintaining and operating our system, and we'd still have to make capital improvements to our system due to its age.
So nobody will lose their job?
Yes, sir. No one will lose their job.
Okay. And you mentioned something about liability impacted by overflows. Have we been ever impacted by this in the past?
Yes, we have a consent order right now with the Department of Environmental Quality due to overflows. We haven't experienced fines because we agreed to enter into this consent order, which requires us to improve our system.
And does any of the money that we collect go into the general fund? Will we lose any income?
Under this proposal, we would not lose any income to the general fund.
Will we lose any income to any fund?
No.
Okay, all right, Tommy,
I have a real quick council concern that addresses for all of us. Can I bring it up real quick?
have you been reading it on your?
No, well, I'm trying to get this for you guys. The historic preservation people have started a campaign against the demolition of Ocean View and Larchmont, and I don't fault them for their passion with that, but I have an issue with some information that they're putting in their flyers that's more of editorializing and accusing council of things that is not true. If I send that flyer to Ron and Lori, if you can put together points, because we're all starting to get emails from people. One thing for them to be passionate about saving historic buildings, but to lie and say things that we have not done. With that, I think that we need to be able to respond back to constituents and let them know. I got it on my car after the 75th anniversary of Ocean View, and to read that and, say that we're trying to hide stuff from the public on that, I think that the public needs to know where we are in that stage and that this will be coming out with that information. It would be helpful, I think, for all of us to have that so we can just respond back.
If you can send it, that would help, because I'm working with Ron on it now, so to have that information would help a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we did get
We've
one
had
today.
some calls in here saying take
Tear
them
down.
down.
Yes,
Yes,
Take them down.
We got one
I've got-
today, an
I've gotten
email.
a couple that have
So
said,
I also am curious because I think we were told that school board had voted, administration had voted that they were in favor of new buildings. And I just asked a school board member, he said that was not true,
We didn't say there was a vote.
or a
We said that they
recommendation from school
communicated
board.
that it was a desire of the
Yeah, 'cause he
administration,
told me
of the
that was not true.
administration.
Just administration, not
Yes.
school board.
That would go to the school board first, wouldn't it, for a vote?
Well, this is a little bit different because of the PPEA. But
Okay.
I spoke directly with Dr. Houston yesterday and Dr. King out at Ocean View Elementary, and was advised that it was the recommendation of the administration and of the school board that they build new schools. That's,
They need to get together and
So
Okay.
this is a little different than what we did when we did TEL.
it is.
Okay.
So are they talking about preservation I thought they were talking about a portion of Larchmont, maybe the front, and also a portion of Ocean View that's supposed to be.
I think there's lots of ways to preserve character.
Right.
For instance, we found out, well, we know that there's a 900-pound bell at Ocean View Elementary that they can't operate and haven't been able to operate it for years and years. That's the sort of thing you would want to, in the new school, have move the bell, and you'd want to, I mean, there are all sorts of ways to do that, so. But part of the problem, one of the issues is, you know, how you build a new building while the kids are still in the building, so.
I think
Okay.
there's gonna be people on either side, personally.
All right, well, let's.
That's
go-
fine. I just think we need to
Exactly
Glad you
put
got
our
that
side
straightened
out.
out.
It's a, have you seen the letter, Paul? I'll get everybody a copy of it.
Are we going into closed session? What was that?
We go up.
What did you say?
She said she thought there might be people on the other side of it.
There are people who
Ooh,
still
there's a
don't.
hot chick.
We're the members of council assemble in closed
Or as
meeting
they would say,
February 4, 2014, at 5:10 p.m. for the purpose set out in Clause 7 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and its consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members, consultants, or attorneys pertaining to one legal matter regarding 161 Granby Street.
It's a nasty letter. It's to you and,
The screen?
saying that you have personal connection with SP Power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screen.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, yes,
It's Norfolk Historical.
Mr. Riddick?
Sorry.
Is it
Mr.
Ellison?
Riddick?
Yes.
Mr. Smigiel?
Aye.
Dr. Whibley?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Wynn?
Aye.
Mr. Frame?
Norfolk doesn't have a signature on it, just says. It says, insist that the city requests new proposals using formats to track experience renovation and not designed to achieve a preordained outcome to benefit particularly politically favored contractors. I guess that, I took that as an.